Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hello, and happy spectacular season. It's October to all of you, and I hope you all are having a great day so far. Today, our speakers will discuss programs that offer drivers the opportunity to access electric cars without predatory financing options. My name is Simbiat Yusuf. I am the Member Relations Manager at Fourth. And before the panel starts, we have a few updates from Fourth, and I will then pass it along to our moderator today, Ian Sergeant, who is the Program Manager at Fourth. Attendees, we ask that you submit all your questions via the attendee chat. We will get to the questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. We will also be sending the recording as well as the PowerPoint presentation to all of you after the webinar. And just in the interim, because we had a short break in September, if you've forgotten about Fourth, who we are and what we do, we are on a mission to electrify transportation. We bring people together in developing projects and solutions to reduce barriers to access for electric transportation and to reduce pollution. We work in 5 focus areas, which are access to electric cars, access to charging, events and partnerships, policy advocacy, and access to emerging modes. If you would like to learn more about Fourth, our work, you want to see any of the papers or reports we've published, that could all be found on our website at fourthmobility.org. And I wanted to give this opportunity to thank our sponsor today, Honda, as well as our members that support the mission of Fourth and support us putting these webinars together. If you have any questions about sponsorship, there's still opportunities. We have 2 more webinars to go this season, and we're planning a great session for you all next year. Or if you want any information about membership, please reach out to myself. My email is on the screen, or my email will also be in the recap email. So looking forward to chatting with you all. And wouldn't you want to be a part of this fabulous team? Fourth is hiring. We currently have 2 positions: the Senior Finance Manager and Program Manager for Agricultural Electrification. If you would like to learn more about these positions or wanted to share with your network, information will be found in the recap email as well as on our website. And finally, last but not least, the call for proposals for the Roadmap Conference is now open. You have until November 11th to submit any abstract regarding case studies, best practices, or projects advancing the clean, smart, and electric transportation industry. If you would like to submit an abstract, we will include the link in the webinar recap as well as on our website, as well as on the website roadmapfort.org. And now I am going to pass it along to our moderator today and not hold you from a great conversation that's going to happen. Thank you all so much, Ian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian Sergeant. I'm a program manager at Fourth. I focus on access to cars, and I work on 2 programs. One of them is focus on electrifying rideshare and delivery work. The other one is in this realm, which is a focus on creating equity around access to electric vehicles for disadvantaged communities. So I'm really excited to be here today. My background, I used to run a business organizing cultural travel to Cuba, and with the changing political winds, I found myself having to lean on doing rideshare driving for work to pay the bills. So I have a deep understanding of the expenses associated with gas and maintenance of a car and the expense of owning a car. And so this is kind of a dear program to my heart. I'll introduce our panelists. We've got Landra Glover here, from she's an economic empowerment program coordinator with Metropolitan Family Service. They're a very important organization, especially in this region. We've got Jenifer Bosco. She's a staff attorney with the National Consumer Law Center, and the Ways to Work program is actually their brainchild. So I'm excited that Jenifer's here. And we've got Mary Vasquez. She's community advocate at Point West Credit Union. And I think that having a financial institution that is able to make these programs possible and make these loans is a keystone to making any of this work. So I'll go ahead and start with an icebreaker. Considering how I started my morning, I like to think about how other people like to kickstart their day. So, what is your favorite way, if each of you don't mind running through this really quickly, your favorite way to start a day that if you don't do, the day might go a little more slowly than it might otherwise? Landra, would you like to start?
Actually, say that one more time. How do I like to
What is your favorite way to kickstart your day? If you wake up and you're like, I'm not feeling this, how do you get going in the morning?
meditation?
Nice. How about you, Jenifer?
Um, well, probably playing the New York Times spelling bee. That wakes me up.
Get the brain going. Mary, how about you?
Coffee, coffee, and more coffee.
Nice. I do a combination. I wake up with a meditation if I'm feeling a little grouchy, especially, and then I've got my iced coffee to get me going. I just moved into an apartment building that has it on tap, free flowing. So there's a lot of regulating myself that I'm getting used to. Anyway, I'm glad that you guys are all here. And if you'd like to go around and introduce yourselves, um, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to Landra, and then we can turn off our webcams so that Landra can be the star of this moment.
Thank you. So my name is Landra Glover. I'm the Economic Empowerment Coordinator for Metropolitan Family Services. And I've been with the organization for about 3 years. I've been working in economic empowerment for about, I would say, 11. I've done done a lot. And it's been an amazing journey, and I love the work that I do. We're going to get started with my presentation, and I'd just like to say welcome. The Ways to Work program has been around for about 15 years, and the program is for working families. These families are typically low income, and they face a lot of credit challenges, and we strive to assist these families to basically obtain fair loans and safe, reliable vehicles. At the same time, while reducing the purchasing price and maintenance costs associated with owning a vehicle. And what I mean by that is Ways to Work program is a program that allows clients to receive loans from $2,500 to $12K for maintenance, refinance, or to purchase a car. And recently the program, maybe it's been 2 years, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it has now been open to individuals. It used to just be families. And one thing I can say is that this program is definitely never needs promoting. It's typically a word of mouth. When we do promote, say if there's a fair and we, hand out flyers, we receive even more phone calls and more emails. But I work the program myself, and I am always busy with phone calls and emails constantly. So the program is very, very popular. We're typically the last resort for a lot of clients, so I'm constantly inundated with phone calls and emails. So typically our clients, they have poor credit scores. We also notice that a lot of our clients, although Oregon has a great transportation system, I've lived in other states and I think they have a pretty good transportation system. We noticed that it would take clients about 2 hours or more to commute to their employment, not to mention if a child gets sick or there's a family emergency, it could be a number of things. So the average score for our clients is about a 568. They typically have outstanding debt or other um, financial barriers. Sometimes there are not just financial barriers, but social and emotional barriers as well. And sometimes I get clients who have already purchased a car, but they are once I pull their credit report, I realize, the interest rate for that particular vehicle is about 30% they are being charged about a 30% interest rate. So as I said earlier, sometimes we refinance if we can, if it's possible. Sometimes these loans get abandoned. It's a plethora of different things. If a client has not sought out or wants to try to still seek out a vehicle at a traditional car dealership, they're considered risky to lend to. So they are going to face some form of high interest rate. As far as the Ways to Work program, what sets us apart is that we don't focus so much on the credit. We we look at we look at several things. We look at the client as a whole. We look at credit. We look at debt to income ratio. If you have the income, but maybe not the credit, that we look at that. If you can make the payments, I work with the clients from beginning to the end. We typically don't turn clients away unless they have like a bankruptcy or some garnishments. To give you a short example, I have worked with a young lady since 2019, and she received her loan last month, and she was our first EV client. And it was perfect because when I met the client, that's exactly what she wanted. Although she was what we consider a low income family, her life allowed her to put her in a place to where this is what she wanted to do, and she knew, she had done the research and knew what she wanted and how to go about it. So it was just a matter of getting her credit and things of that nature in order. Let's see. So the highlights are just recently we were awarded a 1-year grant from the Drive Change Fund from PGE, and that was to expand our current waste work program to include electrical cars and bikes, and then extended our research to increase our consumer education to basically help our clients through the buying process. We also partnered with Fourth, and they've been great to basically help us better prepare, to educate myself and staff members of the benefits of EVs, the rebates, the tax credits, and it's been quite an experience. In addition to that, we also received funding from Portland Clean Energy Fund, and that also took place in September of 2022. And we received additional funding to do more outreach, more education and advocacy for more EV loans. Simply, a lot of our clients just don't know. There's a lot of unknown. So this better prepares us to be able to communicate to our clients the benefits of this new program. So with that, we have decided, with the funding, we have also decided to infuse climate justice into all our programs. And then we typically use AmeriCorps members as well. And so now our AmeriCorps members, for the first time, they will be required to dedicate 10 hours a week to climate change, education, and outreach throughout the program. And what we've noticed is some of the challenges is that we have clients that, I speak to the clients on a day-to-day basis. And some of the things that I've noticed is that they are fearful of the unknown. How does the EV fit into their current lifestyle? The old way made sense, just to go get gas and move on. This is too good to be true. What guarantees do I have with this new transition? I've been curious, but my current lifestyle would have to adjust, and history tells me not to trust the system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Landra. You brought up some really valuable points. I'm looking forward to diving into those a little more deeply as we move on. Mary, I'd like to go ahead and have you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about the program that Point West Credit Union offers.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invite. My name is Mary Vasquez. I am the community advocate for Point West Credit Union. I've been part of the credit union family for almost 16 years. So it's definitely been a pleasure and an amazing journey. I started off as a teller, so now I do outreach, and let me tell you what, it is such a fun job to have. Point West Credit Union. We are located down on 9th Avenue by the Lloyd Center area. We're open Monday to Friday. Yes, our team wants those weekends off, so they're getting their weekends off for now. We do serve 14 counties in Oregon. And we've been around for over 80 years. So we actually were Molco Credit Union, started off with Multnomah employees back in the day. What makes Point West different? Well, many things. I can definitely take over an hour just talking about the amazing things that makes us different. But I know I only have a couple minutes. So we are low income destination. So we do serve low to moderate income families. We are also a CDFI institution, so we are able to provide special programs and apply for some grants to help our community with their needs. We are also have Juntos Avanzamos, so that means that we're able to also provide accounts and also lending purposes to non-citizens. So if they have an ITIN, we're able to also assist them. So that's what Juntos Avanzamos is all about. And like I said, we do offer many services, and I would say 1 of every 5 of our members are low income families. So our programs are very unique. Our staff are over probably like 80% of them are bilingual at this time. And our website is both in Spanish and English. We've been working with MFS on the Ways to Work program since day one, and it's been, yes, a challenge, but also an amazing program. And we try our best to really also bring out more of financial awareness and help our community understand what is finances in a way that it could capture more of, you know, steps that can really offer a second chance. For example, a lot of our services, we don't base it just on our credit. We also base it on what happened before that. If they have, for example, check systems and they're like, we needed an account, we're able to say, okay, let's talk about it. How can we help you achieve your financial goals? So part of my role is to do a lot of financial literacy classes. I go out and I do presentations about budgeting, credit, how to build wealth in this country. We also offer a lot of credit builder programs, like the Pathways, where you can just start building your credit with just $60. So it really being a small credit union, not too small because we almost have around 11,000 members, but it makes us very unique because we're able to provide unique programs as Ways to Work and credit builder programs like Pathways. It helps us really connect with our community and be there with them through that journey. And also it helps us reestablish trust, because unfortunately with institutions there has been a lot of broken trust in the past, in the history, and so we understand that. So we have to always remember that it's not just about letting our community know, hey, there's this program available, apply here, do this. It's always about meeting them where they are and understanding their struggles and their needs, and trust, and building that trust in each other, and just sitting with them and having a one-on-one conversation. And that's really what makes us different and unique, is that our team understands, and they want to be able to help our community through any journey that they're on. If it's not a loan that they can get approved now, it's like, what can we do to help you through your journey and get approved next time? We've partnered with Fourth for since the beginning as well, and it's been a challenge. I know we've tried to approve as many loans as possible, but it's always about having the 2 years taxes, and it's been a challenge, but we are still here. We're here to support our community, whatever we can do to continue bringing awareness and continue bringing financial literacy and helping our community. We'll stand by and be here as well. So I invite, if there's any other financial institutions out there, I will invite you guys to please join the mission of Fourth. And I think it's really important to come together and help our families, have these amazing vehicles that can help them with a lot of their budget, right? Because we know how gas is so expensive. And I think it would make such a big difference to really help our community break that barrier down for them. And so I invite whoever's out there, if you're a financial institution and you want to talk more about our programs and how can you join this amazing mission, please contact me. I will share my information at the end. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. That's really good information. I love all the work the Point West Credit Union does. And I appreciate that you mentioned the assist that Metropolitan Family Service does in credit counseling, which is obviously a very important part of this in order for it to work out. I'd like to remind all attendees to please throw any questions you've got into the chat. We may not get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. And I will go ahead and pass this on to Jenifer Bosco.
Thanks, Ian. And it was great to hear from Mary and Landra. And hi, everyone. I'm Jenifer Bosco. I'm a staff attorney at the National Consumer Law Center, where I am the managing attorney of the Energy and Utility Unit. And in case you're not familiar with the National Consumer Law Center, or NCLC, we're a nonprofit advocacy organization, and we work for economic justice for under-resourced people and communities. And I'm going to talk a little about kind of the broader policy context, really, for auto financing and challenges, particularly for lower income consumers who need a car. And their interest rates for subprime auto loans, continue to be quite high, 20% and up, which makes it difficult to afford these loans for for all consumers. But I wanted to also just talk about the additional financial burdens on people who experience systemic racism. That there is a history of racism in auto purchasing in this country, unfortunately, in auto sales. And NCLC has put out a report analyzing some of this by my colleague John Van Alst, and that really looks at the increased prices for vehicle add-ons, for the extra things that get added onto a car, increased interest rates for people of color who are buying cars, and increased prices for the cars themselves. And the CFPB consent order that's mentioned, that was an instance of violations of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So there's a few more things I wanted to mention too. The cost of not just buying the car, but owning the car can be, there are additional financial burdens that can be associated with that, particularly for people of color, where there are There's also a history of people of color being charged more for car insurance, and for disproportionately being faced with fines and fees for minor traffic violations. So there's a lot to be done overall to address affordability for all consumers, and especially drivers who are people of color, who've experienced the financial impacts of systemic racism. So, what are some of the approaches? What can we do? And for to work on expanding access to vehicles, to all vehicles, and to electric vehicles for consumers. And I think Ian had mentioned earlier, NCLC has a Working Cars for Working Families project that my colleague John Van Alst, who I mentioned earlier, is the director of, and they have a resource for organizations that either are interested in starting a nonprofit car ownership program or want to maybe work on growing or improving their existing program, and that is called Shifting into Gear. It's available on our website. And there are a number of nonprofit car ownership programs around the country. They tend to be pretty small, but they're spread throughout the country. There are also some states, municipalities, counties that have other programs to help lower income consumers get access to more affordable loans, and there are a couple of examples here, and also an example of the Express Credit Union in Seattle that offers a slightly lower APR for electric vehicle loans. Um, another another kind of entity to look to for options for fair financing might be green banks, and there are some states that have green banks. Connecticut, I know, used to have a partnership with a local bank. Their green bank had a partnership with a local bank where electric vehicle loans were offered at a lower interest rate and for more affordable financing. I think that partnership wrapped up, but that could be something to look at in states that are rolling out green banks. So, I guess the things that I'm talking about apply generally not just to electric vehicles, but really to all car purchases. And we do need greater consumer protections for all auto purchasing. Um, Car purchases are, often like one of the more significant financial investments that consumers make, and will be often one of the more complex financial transactions that we enter into, and dealers do this every day, and really do have the upper hand in those negotiations. Um, and about 75% of light duty vehicle sales in this country are through the retail establishments or through the dealerships. And so a lot of consumers aren't necessarily going out and shopping around for a loan at an outside bank or entity. One of the other areas for advocacy that we're looking at is under the new federal tax credits that will be available for purchasers of used electric vehicles under the Inflation Reduction Act. How do we really make sure that consumers can take advantage of those and get the full benefit of those incentives when this program is rolled out? And how will the advance payments work so that people can buy a used EV and have the incentive apply to the price at the time of sale? And we'll be encouraging the Treasury Department as they roll out the program and develop a system for registering and enrolling dealers, to vet dealers and to really have a clear definition of the sale price, so that the prices of cars can't be marked up to the point that it makes the incentive kind of useless. And a lot of those same principles apply to the state and local incentives that are available for people who are buying EVs. and the same need to prevent what's called dealer capture of the incentives. So that's when a dealer marks up the price by the same amount of the rebate or incentive that might be available. So those are, I guess, some of the overarching policy issues for auto financing and EV financing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jenifer. You bring up some very good points, especially with regard to the upfront cost of vehicles. This definitely needs to be addressed. And I think I'm going to go ahead, and I feel it's important to mention that this program, in answer to one of the questions that I saw, currently is just for complete BEV cars, just electric vehicles, but it also includes bicycles and motorcycles. Really, anything that can run on electricity, we're including in this. And I think that it's important that this is included because electrifying cars isn't the entire solution. It helps, but we can't have this many cars on the road and a growing number of cars on the road. So I think that for many people in this program, especially people who just need simple transportation to get to and from work or school, an electric bike could be the way to go. And it can also work for grocery shopping. We've got electric cargo bikes. So I just wanted to say that, and we're going to open things up to the Q&A right now. One of the questions that we received was from Matt, who asked if this program is only available in state or if this is nationwide. Right now, we're working in Oregon. We're hoping to complete a study so that we can create a model that could be scaled and replicated by other organizations across the country. So if you don't want to wait for that, like Mary said, please feel free to reach out to her or any one of us if you have any questions about the aspect of this work that we're doing. And let's see what other questions we've got here. Actually, did any of you want to say anything to what I've just said or that question that I've answered? All right. Cool. Then let's move on to the next question. Let's see. Are there benefits for hydrogen and fuel cell vehicles, or do EV incentives also apply to fuel cell cars? Again, this is just for EVs. And I'm going to open up to the attendee chat. And we'll go from the top. So I'm seeing some cheerleaders here. Yeah. Well, we're rooting for you too, and we want to help this spread to where you are. The average vehicle price is still really high. And as Jenifer mentioned, this is a major hurdle. And Landra, who works with people directly, also can speak to that. Landra, I wanted to ask you a question that is related to this, and maybe you can expand on it. But I was wondering what you see, since you've worked with the Ways to Work program for a while now, before we started electrifying it. What do you see that works, and what do you see that could be improved on? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot like that.
Yeah, no problem. So as far as the program as a whole, we get a lot of people with a lot of barriers. Like I said, sometimes it's not always it could be just let me say it like this. What I say about the clients is it's like the movie Forrest Gump when he talks about the box of chocolates. You never know, kind of like what you're going to get. So I get a lot of different people that call with a lot of different situations. Usually people are in like a panic because, like I said, we're their last. There's no one else. They hear about us. It sounds good. It's like, oh, credit's not a big deal, so everyone calls us. Um, Credit still is a factor. Income is a factor. There's a lot of things. Like I said, we try to look at the person as a whole. We try to look at everything, right, to see if they can make these payments. So the problem is when you are living in a state of a fight or flight, when it comes to food, finances, domestic violence, just any type of barrier, clients will want to do what's easier or what's fast or I need to get this now. So sometimes I'll get clients and I'll ask them, are they interested in this type of vehicle? And I'll hear, and they'll say no. And I'll, say, well, there's no pressure, but could you just kind of give me some information as to the first thing that comes to your mind as to why not? And it's because I don't know anything about it. And that's usually like my their first response. Some people are like, oh, I've thought about it, but I'm not sure. And so it's the thing of when you have the ability to kind of relax, when we have more time on our hands, and this is just in life in general. If you think about yourself, you may have raised kids, you may have gotten divorced. When your life changes and you're stepping into something different, it takes a moment to kind of feel things out. Like, oh, I'm going to try this now, or I decided to try a golf class, or I decided to learn how to sew. Those are all transitions. So if you take that and then add not having, food or things like that, it's not that people don't necessarily, I've never heard anyone say, I don't care about this. This is stupid. It's more so, this doesn't make sense because my life is crazy. Right. So it's like, how can we show them how it does make sense? How it can be okay. Because people are kind of in a state of like fight or flight. I have things that need to be done, and I don't have time for this new thing. I know that cars have been around forever, and this is what works, and this is what I'm going to go with. So
That makes sense. Yeah. So maybe there's an educational component that takes into consideration the fact that
mhm.
sometimes people are in survival mode. Sometimes they need something that they understand and they need it as soon as they can get it.
Yeah.
We're fortunate over here in the Pacific Northwest to have a pretty good charging infrastructure as well as very inexpensive ways to charge. And I think that can help a lot. And I think that possibly for this to be successful in other regions, there also needs to be not only strong charging, but affordable charging. Not everyone can pay $1,000 or $2,000 to have a level 2 charger installed at their home because maybe they don't have a home. Maybe they live in an apartment building. Maybe that's just not a possibility for them. So there needs to be strong public charging, but affordable as well. For example, here in Portland, um, there's a program with Shell Recharge and PGE in which people can pay a subscription, $25 a month, and they get unlimited charging after 9 p.m. and I believe before 3 p.m. on weekdays, and then unlimited on weekends. And that goes a long way. So thank you so much for that, Landra. Mary, I think that another component of this that I mentioned earlier that makes it work, excuse me, is having a lending institution that is able to field this. And I know that I think, it was explained to me before that using the phrase fair financing isn't necessarily fair to the lending institutions themselves because they're not choosing who they loan to necessarily. I mean, of course, historically there's been some institutionalized racism and that still needs to be addressed. And when we're talking about fair financing, what we're really talking about is the ability of a bank to legally, because they need to respond to the Fed as far as protecting their assets and the loans that they give out to people. And so they need to be able to justify the loans that they give out and make sure that they have the finances to cover their losses. Banking is not my background, obviously. You may have been able to tell from the way I'm talking about this, but Mary, I wanted to ask you and if you can speak to this, what makes it possible for a lending institution like Point West Credit Union to have what I believe is called a loan loss reserve, which can make these loans possible?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our certifications that we have, we're a CDFI and we're also low income destination. So that's how we can be able to be more than just like you said, bank, right? We are a credit union, but many times they're like, well, what's the difference? Well, we can be a CDFI credit union, and it makes us have that reserve to be able to help our community. And a lot of times they're like, well, you need a loss reserve for this, you need a loss reserve for that. But it's kind of like people think like, oh, just because a person has challenging credit, they're like, oh, it might not work. or actually it's been the opposite in my experience. Is the people that you give them an opportunity, they'll be like, thank you for that, thank you for giving an opportunity and trusting me, because you're working with a community that has never given an opportunity at all, and so they'll work with you because you open that door for them. And so, yes, it's great to have those reserves, and you use that money for other things as well, other programs. But it's building those relationships, and giving them that opportunity and awareness. I did. Now that you open it up to me, we do give a great discount for people that do electric vehicles as well. And I apologize for not mentioning that at the beginning. That's a way of kind of rewarding, and we also provide them more information of like, hey, we understand if you live in an apartment, here's where you can kind of go and plug your car, and like giving them more awareness of like, this is why you should try it, right? I feel like in our community, many times the unknown is what's scary, and it's really being able to say, well, what are you as an institution doing with your community to help them and educate them and letting them know what's there for them, right? And I think it's not just about us approving or denying, it's about doing more than that. It's about referring, it's about working with community partners like MFS, that are doing the amazing work, and just combining and uniting to just make this place a better world.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Mary. I see a question. We've got a couple of them. Are these, is this program only covering new vehicles or used as well, or a mix? Yeah, any electric vehicle is included in this program, including used. The used market is pretty slim right now. Prices are still artificially inflated. We're hoping that gets better soon. And I think that these incentives should help. We definitely need more. And we will share this recording in a recap email. Our prices are out of control. I feel like I missed something here. Okay. And then I wanted to see, Jenifer, if you could maybe speak to, since you know, not only the Waste to Work program like the back of your hand, but the electrified side of it too. I was wondering if, with your background, if you could choose one thing that you would add or change within this program, which I know will be hard because I've spoken with you one-on-one, and it's idea after idea, and it's amazing talking with you. But if you had to choose only one that you would add to this program, maybe one and a half, what do you think you would change about it or add to it?
Only one idea that I could add to this program. That's tricky. I mean, I don't know. Actually, something you were saying earlier was making me think about the consumer education piece, and I have to say, like, from my perspective as like a person who works at a consumer advocacy organization, we we're often very hesitant when solutions or policy improvements are kind of hinge on consumer education and disclosures, because it's just not enough usually. But I think in this instance, in helping people to learn about electric vehicles, consumer education for kind of all consumers regardless of income in this area is really needed. So I don't know, I was thinking like about maybe for those for people who are like, I'm not sure if an EV is right for me right now because of the circumstances in my life and I don't know as much about it. Maybe like partnering with like a car sharing program, and providing some kind of subsidy to use a car sharing program initially. Like, well, do you want to try this out for a month, see what you think, and if you find that this does work. And the way that you're nodding, Landra, I'm wondering if this is already happening. But
No,
anyway,
but I
just
was
one thought.
no, but I was going to that was going to be something that I brought up.
What are your thoughts on that, Landra? Has anyone approached you about finding a way to try an electric car out or to see what it's like?
No, but my gut tells me that it's a good idea.
Yeah, I feel that.
So,
That's
just
something
off
that
of the experience that I've had, I think I was actually gonna say if it came up, or I was gonna try to mention that I thought that it would be, um, a great opportunity to find a pilot project program to, allow families to actually utilize and maybe go inside, some of the schools, and just find a way to allow them to, use a vehicle for a certain amount of time and just kind of track the progress and see how they're doing it, and then the word will spread. And I think schools are good because look at all the families you will encounter in schools. So I think individuals pretty much, um, I think it might be somewhat easier for individuals, but with families, I think it's more challenging. So maybe using some schools as a pilot, finding families that could benefit, actually letting them actually use the vehicles and charge it, and just get an understanding of how does this make sense. So it's a lot of unknown.
yeah. Yeah. So I want to let everyone know this is still we're still in the early part of this program, so we don't have a lot to show for it yet. We're still recovering from the pandemic, and we're piecing things together and seeing what sticks after so much time of not being able to work on this directly in person. Um, so I see a question about how e-bikes are involved in the project, and are we seeing a lot of use from that side of the program? Not yet, just because, again, it's so new. But Metropolitan Family Service has a list of resources, including local people who are selling e-bikes, ways to order them online, places to get them repaired, how to keep them safe from theft, how to maintain them, how to charge them. So we're hoping that over the next year, as this program gets more exposure locally and there's more in-person contact, that the e-bike side of things will grow. Lander, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Then I'm going to ask a broad question to all three of you, and I'll let you chime in or discuss. But it's kind of big. But if there were another partner to become involved in this program, what do you see it looking like? For example, could it be an organization that focuses on education, or is there another aspect that you think would add to this program? What sorts of partnerships do you think need to happen for this program to work in other places? And that was very open ended. So, Mary, were you about to say anything?
Well, I mean, I feel like we need money because
Yeah,
affordable, right? The vehicles are not affordable for our community right now, especially in my opinion, the community that needs it the most. And I feel like, unfortunately, because of the prices and everything, they're just not affordable. It's not something, even though that they want to try and say, yes, Mary, I would love to give it a try and save some money on gas and not be able to ever do gas. But can they afford it, right? How can we help our community afford that? So for me, my ideal partner would be someone that could help with that, right? Bring in some capital, and help specifically for families that are not able to be approved based on their income.
yeah, that makes sense.
Um, can I go next? Is that so one possibility, we were talking about the price of charging, and what about partnering with one of the charging station operator companies that's in that particular region to see if maybe they would consider like offering like prepaid cards to help pay for charging for the first like month or a couple of months or something like that. So some kind of assistance getting over that hump, or possibly like for lower income people, an ongoing like discounted rate for charging. Um,
Yeah,
so just a thought.
that seems like a really good model. So more partnerships between local utilities and maybe energy providers or charging station owners, DCFC charging owners, but maybe level two as well for installation in apartment buildings and areas outside of the center of the city or wherever disadvantaged communities might be more focused. I wonder what a partnership would look like with a manufacturer or with dealerships who might be willing for the exposure, in exchange for the exposure and the positive light, to perhaps forgo their profits a little bit for a program like this. Possibility. Let's see if we've got any new questions. We've got a question for you, Jenifer. What policies should we be looking at on a national level? Is there something within IIJA?
Well, I mean, within the IIJA, the wait, Inflation Something and Jobs Act. I can't remember what that second I or first I was for, but that was the federal kind of bill that it set aside funds for the national EV infrastructure system. So I guess that's one area is as that's being rolled out. Really, the Department of Transportation has already kind of sought public input about that, but I think it's going to be an ongoing process, and in a lot of states to make sure that the money is spent to get charging into areas where it's needed, where there's not a lot of charging already, in areas that are maybe where more lower income residents live, and that the market really hasn't seen those as where they're going to prioritize. But if we're going to make sure that EVs are really accessible to all, especially as and I recognize like what Mary was saying. Absolutely, right now it's pretty hard to find an affordable, even used EV. But I'm hoping, I think we're all hoping that's going to continue to shift over time as there are more and more cars on the market and more used cars come into the market. So making sure that the charging infrastructure is in place in all kinds of different neighborhoods for people. And then I think I kind of quickly just touched on this, but under the Federal Inflation Reduction Act, there is federal funding to, well, there's a new tax incentive now to replace the previous EV tax incentive, which only applied to new vehicles. Now there will be a used, probably everybody knows this on this call, but a used EV credit that will be available to folks. So that's, and as I think I mentioned, that's one area of policy focus, is making sure that that's actually going to work for lower income people, because it's not really designed in an ideal way at this point to make it easy to use, because that was just whatever compromise had to happen for this to get passed. So given that it's not the ideal structure, um, how can we make it work as well as possible, so that low income people can actually access it? So I those are kind of two of the national things that we're looking at for policies.
That's great. And then I'm gonna toss another one to you, Jenifer, if you don't mind. There's a really good question about what steps can be taken or are being taken to better ensure that incentives are going directly to consumers. For example, as opposed to organizations, companies, for-profit companies that might want to purchase electric vehicles in bulk. Um, what are ways that we can make sure that
Mm.
consumers are getting these benefits before the pot runs dry?
Well, I guess that's a good question too.
Yeah.
With the used vehicle incentives, I mean, that I think there are different types of incentives built into in the IRA, and there are some that are focused on consumers in particular. I think one of the things that I guess I've worried about more than it being rated by other entities, although that's certainly, a concern, I guess, is how do you make sure that, like, for the individual who's making a purchase, how do you make sure that when, they are entitled to, a $4,000 tax credit or rebate or on the car, that the car's not just marked up. The price is marked up by $4,000, that so that it goes into the pocket of the dealer. So, uh, that's one of the challenges. There's not really an easy answer for that, I don't think, unfortunately. Consumers can try to be aware, but I think, like, we just kind of have to hold the dealers accountable for, for administering this fairly.
We're getting some really good heady questions now, and so I'll let you guys know that listeners that we may not be able to address these questions right here, and if not, we will address them afterwards when we send everyone a copy of this. So I'm kind of curious, Mary, when you're working with Metropolitan Family Service, I imagine, are you working directly with Landra or someone at Metropolitan Family Service, or at what stage in the program do you start interacting directly with clients?
They do all the heavy work. They do all the heavy work. I know our team assists them as much as they can regarding reporting. But we do whatever they want us to do. We're more of the back end bone of, like, the more of the structure, reporting to credit, doing the loan itself, but they're the ones really doing the heavy work every day. And yeah, that they're the boss. We're just there to assist. And so we come in whenever they want us to come in. But and I think that as an organization, as a credit union, sometimes we forget that we need to let other organizations that are, they know what they're doing and they have that connection and that community driven, let them do what they need to do and just be there and assist them as they go through that journey. And that's what we do with MFS.
Great. Thank you for that. And then we've got just a couple minutes left. So I'm going to see if I can find a good question, but I'm going to leave it open if anyone wants to jump in right now with any last words that you want to make sure that people know about. And by the way, Landra, like, especially after what Mary just said, thank you so much for all the work that you do. So let's see what questions we've got. These are kind of heady. How do we make sure that charging is fair is kind of the underlying question. And I'm not sure if anyone wants to be able to answer that. I see Simbi coming back on, which means that we're down to the last few seconds, I suppose. So I'll hand it to you, Simbi, if you've got anything that you'd like to say. But I personally want to make sure, just in case I get cut off, I want to say thank you so much to each of you who made it here today and contributed. This is valuable information. Take it, Simbi.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Jenifer. And thank you, Landra, for all spending this hour with us, sharing the work you've all done. And thank you to all of the attendees for joining this webinar today. We have the contact information for our speakers, but we will be sending a webinar recap email, and that's an opportunity to further the dialogue and continue the discussion. We always say an hour is not enough time to cover these topics, but I don't know why we keep doing an hour webinar. We could do an entire seminar or entire workshop on these topics. But thank you so much for starting to dive into the conversation of how we make financing EV affordable to everybody. And that's the big thing. And that's the big work we're all doing here. So thank you so much for showing up. And our conversation will continue with our next webinar on Tuesday, November 15th, where we'll be discussing using federal charging funds equitably and effectively. We'll be joined by our speakers on how we make sure we're celebrating transportation electrification while still centering equity. If you have any questions, again, for our panelists, for Ian about the work we're doing at Fourth relating to this topic, they will be available after the webinar to continue the dialogue via email. Again, I can't say this enough. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks, guys.